States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Arlene, could you please do the roll call?
Ron Aldred,
Here.
Francis Bach,
Here.
Brian Burns,
Here.
Del Cullum,
Here.
Rick Drew,
Here.
James Grimes,
Here.
Susan McGraw-Keeber,
Absent.
Bill Taylor,
Here.
Susan Vorpal. Here.
Okay, we'll start with public comment. Excuse me. Okay, James Harris,
Yes, sir.
you want to address the board?
Yes, just for a quick minute.
Yeah.
My name is Jim Harris, and I'm here regarding an application that we filed several months ago for work at 3 Eel Cove and the Georgia Association. On the 24th of May this last year, several of the trustees and Mr. Grimes were kind enough to take their time to go over the property and look at the shoreline, which I know they're familiar with, very familiar with, because they were there 3 weeks prior to that, looking at the Phragmites and how many times. So several people here are familiar with this area. That day, on the 24th that we were there, Mr. Grimes made an amazing diagram. I don't know if any of you saw this, but his recommendation for work along the shoreline. He drew this up in a day. I submitted it to the owners of the property, and they were very interested in it, but it was beyond the scale building-wise and the scale cost-wise of what they were really looking to do. So here I am back again, and my effort here is to see if we could get approval simply to replace the core logs that we installed in 2014 with the trustees. We did 2 rows of core logs along the shoreline, planted it, and it's been great. These core logs, we had asked for gravel. Of course, we couldn't get that. We knew that. And they came up with core logs, and we installed them, and they've been great. They, as energy absorbing, well, you all know, you're familiar with them. They've been terrific in this application. But 5 years later, they're starting to degrade. And we're hoping that it might be possible to simply put 2 more core logs right next to the old ones as the old ones decayed, and once again revegetate, but this time using the pectinate, I'm sorry, that Mr. Grimes recommended that will do better submerged because the water in the pond is coming up so much higher than it used to. So I was just hoping that perhaps you could tell me what I need to do to try and...
Jim, can I just ask a question? Where, in relation to the existing core logs, would you be putting the new core logs?
Directly alongside.
Seaward alongside?
One seaward, one inland. But the sea...
See, I'm going to tell you, my only concern with that is it implies, to me, a bit of a land grab on the part of the property, because you have, you've got that sort of shingle effect there now, and what we'd effectively be doing is pushing that shingle seaward a bit farther than it is right now, because you've got 12-inch core logs.
Yes.
Correct?
And you're exactly right. It's a 12-inch grab, because I want to put the old one's decomposing. If I put the new one inside of that, I mean landward, then I'm afraid it's going to scour.
Yeah.
If you'd like, I mean, I could submerge it more, dig it more into the sand, make it less invasive. But yes,
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. What we looked at that day, I commented that day that the 12-inch diameter core log was inadequate to bury enough of that, which if you wanted to bury 2/3 of it at the base to shore that up,
I'd be happy to do that.
And perhaps remove because it looked like the core logs, with the exception of the south end, nothing was really growing out of the core log itself.
Well, my mistake. Let me say that I planted, as we discussed, I planted patents and spicata, and when submerged, they drowned, they died. So we had for 2 years, I have pictures and I gave them to they're in our file at the trustees, because we photographed everything. They were wonderful for 2 years. But as soon as the pond didn't let in the summertime and it was submerged all through the season, 5,000 plants of patents and spicata, excuse me, Pisticus spicata, yeah,
Testiculus, yeah.
all died. They drowned. So now I'm going to try the pectinata, because as you recommended, it does
Well, no,
better
that- hey,
submerged.
Jim, that was my original suggestion in the cross-section that I gave you there. What was clear is the reason for the lack of success of the Spartina patens and the Testiculus was the elevation that they were originally installed. Yes, they were inundated, and they were inundated for too long a periods of time, but the reason for that was actually the elevation that they were installed at. When you actually look at that shoreline in its state right now, there's a nice bed of Spartina patens and Testiculus to the north, and when you get to the south, there's a nice bed. But when you look at the area immediately in front of where you did your core logs, there's a bit of a slump there, and that was the point of that whole thing, was to basically carry that shingle all the way across at the same elevation,
Well,
so that the
if I can
Spartina
comment.
would actually thrive there.
All right. If I could comment, though, your first comment to me this evening was that kind of a land grab by putting my core log next to the extant core log, but the suggestion you made takes us out 10 feet.
Okay, but I'm not
That-
trying to.
that's a
I'm
land grab.
I'm trying to give you.
Mine takes 12 inches.
I was trying to give you a real vegetated buffer there.
We would love to do it.
Okay,
And at
but
some
if that's
point-
all your budget allows,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be against.
I'd love to try this, and at some point in the future, if I did a section of it, if you'd permit it, to see if we could get some growth, but right now, it's just more.
Jim,
Yeah.
the application was to replace the core logs, is that correct?
To add 2 core logs next to the current ones, because as I say, they're
So, right, so,
they're failing.
right, so is it an option to remove the failing
I don't really
logs
think that's,
and
I mean,
putting-
they're
It's more
settled into the
it's
silt.
more disturbance. There
It-
is more disturbance. There's a certain amount of wisdom in what Jim's proposing
Okay.
here.
Now, here's another, I mean, I can bury it more, because I understand what you're saying, but also, by putting them next to each other, I use 1/2 of the wood to tie them down, because I'm gonna tie them into the old, so really, I'm trying to disturb less. And if I were to remove them, I'd be pulling up whatever grasses and all the silt,
Okay.
I'd have to really excavate to
Hey,
remove them.
hey, Jim, are any of those
Okay.
things, have any of those things deteriorated to the point that you could go right over the top of them? Have they compressed to
You
the
know,
point
They're
that
not.
you could?
Where I am is that the wrap, the hemp wrap,
Yeah.
is decaying, and the outside is pullable, but there's still
The
substance
inside,
to
yeah,
it.
the core
Yeah.
tends to last about 10 years.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm 5 years in.
Yeah, well, the only thing that's deteriorating actually is the core lashing or netting that makes up the.
And then a softening of the core itself, but
Yeah.
it's still,
All right.
it's still there.
Do you
Yes,
ha-
sir.
So, do you have a sketch or a diagram that shows the
I do.
proposed
Uh,
layering or partnering that you're describing? And some type of a plant list or,
I do. Well, all the plant list is on the application,
okay.
and
And that
actually, I have
applies
to
to
change
this-
it to use Mr. Grimes' recommendation on the grasses, because I want to have better
Because
success.
when I looked at your original plant list, because you had the invoice from the supplier the day we spoke.
Yes,
It was actually all freshwater vegetation. And
Yeah.
none of it was brackish water vegetation.
do you know, I
So-
went to New England where, you know, the
Yeah,
New
but you know
England
what I
supply.
don't, but you know what I think honestly the deal there was, is they did not understand the type of water body that you were working.
I do, it's brine. So I'm trying, but I did it, the list that I showed you is simply for experiment. I bought 14 different plants, some clean water, some brine, some salt water, just trying to see what would survive. And I lost all of it, basically.
Right, so I guess my question or request is to see the final plan that specifically delineates
Yeah.
what's to be
Proposed.
proposed.
It's still the original proposal. It's,
Well, you just said that you had to change something.
okay, I'll amend, I mean, can I come into the office and amend the original proposal, just change the graphs?
Absolutely, I just would like to see a final plan.
I would love to do that, and I'll tell you, I can find pictures, I don't want to hold everybody up, but I have photographs and diagrams, which I can leave with the secretary. If that,
That'd be great.
I mean, you're not going to vote on this tonight, are you?
I don't think so.
Even though what?
No, just give it, I
I
think
mean,
just a
if I
little
made
clarification
if I made those
and,
promises and went in tomorrow and amended, did you want to vote tonight?
No.
no,
Next meeting.
Good answer.
next meeting. We'll try and
I'll get 'em
expedite
to
next meeting. If you can get them there in a timely manner and we get a chance to look
I
at
didn't
them.
mean to take all of your time up.
No,
on
it's
this.
fine.
It's an important discussion, thank you.
I'll get this stuff to you. Port logs are terrific, and we'd like to continue with all of your help. And I'll get the amendments of the type of stuff, and I'll send with it a diagram of exactly where I'm talking about going.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jim.
Do you have any idea when you're going to talk about Merchants Path and Town Line? Since I live on the corner of Merchants Path and Town Line.
Well, probably under the roads committee topic, so it'll be further
little
down the
later.
agenda. A
I'll
little
be
later.
back. Thank
Okay.
you so much. I'm sorry to keep everyone waiting.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm midway. All right, Kim and Melissa.
Hello. Melissa Winslow and I are here to talk tonight about, give you a brief overview of the Hog Creek groundwater seepage monitoring plan that was funded by Community Preservation Fund, the 20% that was set aside for water quality improvement projects. About a year ago, the Natural Resources Department made a presentation to the Water Quality Committee, and you guys are represented on there. Bill is your liaison. And we presented to the committee this proposal, which is pretty much a template of what we did at Pussy's Pond. So it's sort of the same thing. We got a lot of positive support from the Hog Creek community, Lionhead, and Clearwater Beach to see something done at Hog Creek. So we drafted this proposal up, presented it to the committee, they approved it, we sent it to the town board, they also gave it their blessing, and then we went out to RFP. Got several engineering firms responded, and we selected RU. I don't know where they're based out of, Western.
Islandia.
Okay. So that's where we are. Originally, when we made the application to the trustees, we really thought that we were more in your jurisdiction. However, with some of the tweaks that we've made to the project, we're actually not in the water exactly. We're on some upland areas, but tonight we're just going to give you, an overview of what we're actually doing there, in case you guys get any questions from anybody in the neighborhood who doesn't know, what we're doing there. Melissa and I were out in the field last week when the crews were out there doing some of the upland wells, and a lot of people stop by, and they want to know what's going on. They want to know, is it on their property? Is it in town right-of-way? So we've situated most of these wells on properties that the town has already purchased in town right-of-ways and/or on lands that the property owners in the community have given us permission. So with that, Melissa can give you the project
Brief overview of the project. So really the first step is just to do a nitrogen input evaluation, get a baseline of where we're at in Hog Creek, and figure out the nitrogen concentrations in the groundwater discharge entering the surface waters. So we propose monitoring to determine the chemical flux of nitrogen at selected shoreline targeted areas.
Is that in the water or upland of the water?
So basically, that's what we're here for. So they're installing wells around the perimeter,
Right.
and then also taking surface water samples. So there's upland, shoreline, and surface water samples being taken.
That was very comprehensive.
Yep.
So there's transits that go across the water body.
Yep. So they established 5 transects and are collecting pore water or groundwater seepage samples and surface water samples. And those are all going to be analyzed for nitrogen series, dissolved and total nitrogen and organic. And basically, we want to fully quantify and delineate potential nitrate impacts in Hog Creek. So this baseline information can be used to make remediation decisions on this project, and then can be used as a baseline for future projects as well as a starting point. So the results will basically be used to determine the most effective areas, determining hotspots that we should be focusing on for remediation. So for sampling locations, we selected RU through the competitive RFP process. So they're going to be putting in all the monitoring wells for us. So there's 4 wells in the upland and road right-of-ways. Those are completed as of last week.
How far upland is upland?
The handout that I gave you shows the MWs. There's 4 MW wells.
Like
Those are
Fenmarsh,
in
one road
basically
out.
on the roadways. So Fenmarsh, Isle of Wight. So it's basically one parcel in. And those are used to characterize and evaluate groundwater flow and the upland concentrations of nitrogen. And they're installed about 20 feet below grade from the surface. And then there were 9, they were already installed as of last Friday, 9 wells along the shoreline. And those were installed just with hand tools to make it non-intrusive for homeowners. And those are installed a little bit more shallow, 8 feet below grade, to target groundwater in that area.
And are they in the marsh or like up?
They're
in the
just,
upland next to the
just
marsh?
upland of the high water mark. So RU will be collecting, I believe, this week and the following, groundwater and surface water samples. They're collecting 10 surface water samples. And they're going to correlate nitrogen in Hog Creek with the groundwater and Gardner's Bay. So just overview of the project goals. We want to assess the current conditions of Hog Creek in terms of nitrogen loading. That's through the groundwater and surface water sampling with RU Associates. We want to determine hotspots for nitrogen-rich groundwater intrusion, and then use those results to make management decisions to improve the water quality in Hog Creek. And that's by reducing nitrogen inputs and targeting the problem areas.
So if I could just take a step back, we did the same thing at Pussy's Pond, and we made some assumptions when we went in. We looked at the pond and we said, where's all this nitrogen coming from? And until we went through this process of actually installing the transits, taking the water quality, we had to change our goals and what we were going to do for remediation based on the monitoring. So this gives you a really better picture on, are these septic systems at these residential homes failing? Are they contributing to groundwater contamination? And at Pussy's Pond, we found out it wasn't exactly a large public institution there. It was actually a residential, heavy development in the lanes there. So it was further removed from the pond than we had assumed.
Kim, what's the frequency you're testing? Is this going to be done throughout the year?
They're doing one initial round to,
Just to give us an idea. Of what
yep, and then based on those results, figure out how many more
No, 'cause
rounds they might need
I would
to do.
assume, given the seasonal nature
Right,
of a lot of the
and that's why they wanted to
activities
target late August.
activities, that you'd want to get this throughout the entire season.
Definitely.
So that
So we're going to take a look at the first round, see if we have to make any tweaks to the project. There's ample funding to, make project modifications as we go along, but we want to take, see what the first results of monitoring, show us.
Is this gonna go through the winter also, the off-season as well?
They really wanted to target the high season for when we would expect the highest nitrogen concentrations coming from septic systems, because all the seasonal homeowners are going to be around and using their systems. But, based on those results, they may propose doing 2 or 3 more rounds to get an annual seasonal.
And if I could just give you another
Correlation.
aside, we are also, my office is also overseeing the rebate program for the innovative alternative nitrogen-reducing systems. And a lot of these homes in this area, a lot of people are participating in that program. And we're finding out, they had bad connections, they had no connections to their pools, their pipes had rotted away. So, it's really going to be interesting to see what kind of information comes out of this. But this neighborhood has been very active in participating in the rebate program.
And
So
how-
we're hoping that this encourages other people.
And Kim, how much of a rebate is it?
16,000.
And the
for this
total,
primary watershed.
right, and the total cost of a new septic system?
It's around 19 to 22,000.
But they're
So-
eligible for a rebate from the county at the
Yeah.
same time, so, and that's 10,000.
Full-time homeowners can get the county grant.
Yeah, but I understand that 19 to 22,000 has not even been close to accurate as far as the real out-of-pocket cost.
It depends on, where the home is and the size of the lot, but the ones that I've seen come through the rebate program haven't even used their
Well,
full
that's good to-
16,000
that's good to
rebate,
hear.
yeah.
So, Kim, is this a potential pilot for other water bodies if this is successful?
Yes, that's exactly.
Like I
To
said,
roll it
this
out?
was a template that we picked up from Footsie's Pond and Acabonic.
So we picked a smaller watershed to do this pilot project, and then, based on the success, we can apply to Lake Montauk or.
3 Mile or-
3 Mile, yep.
Excellent. That's a lot of promise.
So basically, this is the short term, figure out where the issues are, design some potentially permeable reactive barriers to have some passive remediation of the nitrogen input, and then the long-term goal is to upgrade the septic systems and get rid of the source of nitrogen.
Good work.
Thank you for the
Really,
update.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's great. See if
Is there anybody else who wants to address the
going
board?
in that direction,
Yes?
I actually have a question for,
Please come to the podium.
Yep.
hi, I'm Alex Miller. I happen to be a resident of Lionhead Beach and serve on the board. Any of my comments, of course, are my own and not necessarily representative of the entire community. I want to thank you for addressing Hog Creek and the work that you do. We really appreciate it. It's so great that the town now has in Hog Creek off 142 Waterhole Road about 20,000 oysters that are growing there, and the residents of Lionhead Beach have just accepted 2 flupsies, the floating upwellers. I don't know how many tens of thousands of clams will be placed in there, but the environment of Hog Creek is very important to us as homeowners, as folks who live on the planet, and we want to thank you for choosing us to be your next pilot project. The question that I have is, I have 2 questions. One is, you stated that along the waterfront or near the water side, that there are 9 shoreline wells, and the wells are about 8 feet below the surface. Is that deep enough to pick up any nitrogen effluents from a septic system?
Yes,
It is?
it's designed.
And the reason then that 20 feet deep is chosen along the roadside is because you need to get down to that 8-foot? Yeah. Any reason why this is, the testing is, only includes nitrogen and not bacterial or any volatile organic compounds?
The target is really nitrogen in this area, as it's the limiting nutrient for algae growth.
Yes.
So basically, it's just to try to control that source.
What came to mind was your comment about Pussy's Pond, and did Pussy's Pond find bacterial components in? Were you testing Pussy's Pond for that? That's separate testing. Yeah. Whereas at Georgica Pond, that proved to be one of their main problems, wasn't it? Bacterial.
Well, Surfrider, once again, was the first party to do that type of testing. I think Dr. Gobler then added it after Surfrider identified a potential problem by the Route 27 access area. So that is going on in Georgica Pond now with Dr. Gobler, and that would have to be a separate type of testing. It seems like this project is focusing on nitrogen.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the board? Okay. Move on to new business. Accabonac Creek. We have an application from First Coastal on behalf of Neil Simpkins, owner at 123 Water's Edge, for bulkhead reconstruction.
Yeah, I spoke to Billy Mack today. He said he wasn't going to attend tonight. He is going to be submitting another application for the property right next door, so he'd like to just address both at the
Okay.
same time.
So it'll be totally.
So yes, we just table it for tonight.
Okay. An application received from Costello Marine Contracting Corp. on behalf of Robert Cold, 31 Isle of Wight for bulkhead reconstruction. Can I understand?
Robert's here, and I spoke to Robert today. I'm going to do a site visit on Thursday. If I sent an email out to Bill and Susan and yourself
I saw
today,
that.
and
Yep.
and then we can, he has his DEC permit, and I think he's still waiting on natural resource? And us. So we'll take a look at that this week.
Okay. Notice of public hearing before the East Hampton ZBA. Received from Joe Halsey, Robin Katz and Mark Emanuel, 69 Isle of Wight Road. Applicant is seeking a natural resources special permit for variances of 62, 61, 19, and 10 feet.
That was before the planning board last week. I think they tabled it as well. They were requiring, or the homeowner and the attorney had submitted a new veg plan. The issue about the pool, I believe that predated the existing code.
Okay, yeah, okay. I think Susan Kieber
Yeah, she
submitted a
was.
letter.
Yeah, she had submitted a letter to
The
John
ZBA.
Whelan and the ZBA.
Right,
I think the ZBA had requested that they shorten up the patio that
Mhm.
had been structured. And then there was still question of the retaining wall. I don't know what they determined that. I know the homeowner was blaming the contractor for the extension of the retaining wall, stating that they weren't aware of the code. And I don't know what they determined on that. I didn't follow that through.
okay.
Okay, Noble, you do Mulford. We're next.
Whatever.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Napeag Lazy Point, application from Susan Noble regarding her,
Have Nobles?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay.
I'll take care of this one. This is with regards to 100 Shore Road, the Noble residence. It's a small cottage down at Lazy Point, very close to the water, and I'll just read the purpose. My home needs protection from coming storms. The burlap bags used every year are untreated and natural. They disintegrate during the winter months. They will be filled and placed by hand, no machinery. There will be no damage to the beach grass. Access to area is from the top of the property, not the beach, filled with beach-compatible sand. And again, this is something we do for her prior to the storm season. And it actually works out pretty nice because the sand kind of, in time, just kind of fortifies that little embankment. So I would entertain a motion to allow her to do this once again.
can I just ask that
Sure.
someone go down and take a look at it? I mean, I think it should be looked at every
Yeah,
year.
I-
for them to
I did
continue
take
to
a
do
look
this.
at
Oh,
it.
you
I
did?
saw it
Yeah.
earlier in
Yeah.
the season.
Okay.
Nothing had been done.
Yeah.
Is it creating any additional erosion?
No,
No?
no, I think this is really more of a knee-jerk reaction to some of the flooding issues that Susan's encountered in the past, which I think is what prompted this board to suggest that she relocate
Her house,
the
right?
residents.
Right.
Okay, so in lieu of that, I think it's a pretty benign action here.
I remember hearing Susan came in last year, I believe. and
Yeah, this has been
presented
something
this.
that's occurred a couple of
This
times.
has
And I
been,
don't remember, does she remove the old bag?
She doesn't have to, they
Just
they
puts the
disintegrate.
New one on top of it?
Yeah.
put the new ones on top.
Yeah, and there's really no new ones to speak, old ones to speak of.
She uses burlap, they kind of last a year.
Yeah, and the ties are matte jute roping. So, again, I mean, I think part of this appeases her mentally, and it does affect a little bit of, preventing any advanced storm surge. So I would, again,
Did you want to
make a motion that we allow her to do this.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, and First Coastal, on behalf of 153 Mulford Associates LLC, for revetment construction.
Yeah, this is an application for a property. What's the name on this one, Arlene? Is this Rico?
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yes,
Well, no,
yes.
it's not quite out in the water. It's on the edge of the water.
The last property
It's
on
all
this.
this.
Milford Lane?
Yeah.
Got that
I
little
got it in
bag,
here.
The name's in the affidavit. That's right.
I'm not seeing the name.
That's 10 years ago.
You know,
Wow, that can't be cleaned up. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have 153 Mulford Associates.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it, the name at all.
Yeah. Any case, I mean, this is a property that is clearly, like, in jeopardy of finding itself in the drink. They do have sections, they do have a survey here. I think in the past, we have approved sand installation of just sand along here. But I have to kind of agree with the homeowner on this, that sand alone on this property is not gonna do it at this point. You know, that whole shoreline is so scoured back that when you push sand out there, you're actually leading that edge. You're actually pushing out into the water. And it, you see the pictures, the supporting documents.
Yeah,
So there is an existing rock revetment.
There is, I wouldn't describe it necessarily as a rock revetment per se. Maybe at one time it was.
Okay.
Right now, it's sort of a disorganized
Scattered.
array of stone that's there.
Scattered stone.
And I think what they're really trying to do is they need to get something in there
This is what's there now, right, Jim?
I believe so.
Yeah, looking to the west,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's he want to do?
They're looking to put geocubes back in.
Take the rocks out?
Well, I think rearrange the rocks would be my assumption.
The rocks look like they're in the water to me. one side of
Yeah.
Closest to the
Even
house.
at low tide, I'd say they're over
Yeah.
the water.
Jim, have you been down there recently?
I haven't. I was down there this spring. That's the only
Yeah.
recollection I have.
Because what are those bags? Are they legacy geotubes or are
I
they
don't know whether
sand
they're
bags?
legacy geotubes or legacy sandbags.
What are you referring to? Oh, that's old fiberglass sandbags
yeah.
that they don't use them anymore, and those are 10 years old.
So are those being cleaned up?
No, that's up to the folks that live down there.
I'm just saying it'd be nice to see
Yeah.
some type of an improvement to the debris that seems to have been caused by previous efforts
Sure.
as part of this project.
Yeah.
If that is in fact still there.
No, it is, yeah. And what's ironic is his benches here and a fire pit. I don't know why they'd want to sit next to this garbage.
So, I mean.
Well, you know what, I'd like to make a recommendation. I haven't had a chance to speak with the applicant or the agent for the applicant. I'd like to table this till the next meeting so that we can get a little more information.
Yeah,
Maybe a Billy
What
come
about
in.
their other permits? You know anything about their other permits?
The
DEC?
DEC?
Well, that's part of that's part of the reason I'd like to
He
discuss
wants to
this.
see this in emergency.
Where did you get
Can you
the,
take over?
where did you get the geo cubes from? I didn't see.
This is the one right by the house, it's way out in the water, so.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
see
this is the
the
next house.
cubes. I only saw
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
We have almost the exact same situation.
This is the same thing.
It's not even almost, it is the exact same situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to table this one, Jim, for next
I'd
time?
like to table this, give me a chance to meet with
Sure.
the applicant, walk through this a little bit, and get a little more information.
Okay.
Thanks,
Is
Jim.
there
Francis had to
drawing
excuse
here, or-
himself for a moment, so I'm going to continue with the
Okay.
agenda, if that's okay with everyone. All right. So moving on to old business, we have Georgica Pond committee reports, and we have a lot of activity coming up on Georgica Pond this fall, one of which is the Georgica Cove dredging. And we are planning to meet, I believe, with Sarah from Friends of Georgica and Bruce Horwith tomorrow, and start to develop our plan of action for the upcoming work this fall. Jim or Brian, do you guys want to weigh in on that at all?
Well, yeah, no, I think at this point, we have all of our permits. We have the permits in place for the south dredging, for the dredging bar. We have the permits in place for the north bottleneck in Georgica Cove. And it's at this point, we're getting close to the envelope of time that we'd be executing those jobs. So it's time to, on the bottleneck, get a game plan in place. And on the south dredging, we need to put together a bid package for this project and go out to bid. I'd like to do that within the next month.
Yeah. I have the old bid package, the last one went out.
Okay, so
That-
maybe we can meet
Yeah,
and
that was-
discuss that.
That was led on the end of September, but we should put it out a little
Okay.
sooner.
While we're on Georgica Pond, do we have any, has there been any discussion on letting the pond?
Not yet, because I think the bottleneck project requires high water, and that's the
Okay.
first project in sequence of the calendar.
All right.
And then after that, we would look at
Okay, so let's
timing of
table that till
letting.
we've had that discussion.
So we should be able to provide a nice update at the next meeting after we get together tomorrow and any follow-ups.
I'd like to just comment something about Georgica. I was asked by Francis a week or so ago, after we found out there was blue-green algae present in the pond. I went around and I posted letting folks know that they were not to take any fish, critters out of there, crabs, etc. And then somebody shortly after that took the signs down. Not a good idea. You're jeopardizing the health of the community, and if you're caught doing that, it's not going to be pretty. I will notify the police. It's a serious matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Okay. Committee reports. Aquaculture. John, do you have something you'd like to share with us?
Some pictures. This is the marsh mosquito larvae testing project with Nature Conservancy and Vector Control. It was completed last week. We did 9 surveys. So I'll just give you an idea of what we found. I know we've been describing it week by week, but you can, kind of interesting to see it week by week. So this is basically the red dots are sort of a high concentration. It's more than 10 larvae per dip with a mosquito larvae dip cup, which is about this, a cup's worth. The pink is between 1 and 10 larvae, and the white is no larvae. So June 18th, our first survey, we found some larvae, not a lot, in these areas here. There was no spraying, I think, as a result of what we found, and also based on Vector's own surveys. 25th, there were fewer larvae, you can see, but basically they're being found in roughly the same places. So July 2nd, there were very few found. Again, no spraying. The 9th, almost nothing found. Now, this was kind of a dry period, if you recall. Started to pick up a little bit on the 16th. Again, they're being found in sort of the same places every time. So when spraying did occur, it was initially basically determined that they could do it with BTI, the bacteria that will basically act on the smaller larvae. And that's based on what we found. We found predominantly stage 1 and 2 larvae. They don't generally use methoprene until stage 3 or 4 larvae are found. And that didn't really occur until later in the season. So once we get into August, we're starting to see a lot more larvae. But they're basically in the same places. And so in addition to determining when they don't have to spray methoprene, they could, regardless of what they spray, they were able to target the areas that produce the larvae as opposed to having to do blanket spraying. So that was the case throughout the season. And then the final week
John, could you identify the areas?
slowed down a little
Could
bit.
you identify the areas that you're talking about?
Let me go back to a high concentration area. Generally, where you find the larvae is sort of at the edge of the marsh, where the marsh meets the upland, where there might be holes or little depressions that would collect water. If the tide is able to flush an area, it'll generally not produce larvae. So you'll see, when...
Where is that exactly, the location on the map? Where is
It's the north end of Accabonac Harbor,
Thank you.
Yeah,
North Cove.
Accabonac Harbor. And a lot of where the marsh dips in and sort of gets into sort of a cul-de-sac of marsh, often in the back ends of the marshes, that'll be a place that produces larvae. So the ultimate goal of this, and Nicole Mayer of the Nature Conservancy is going to give a presentation a little bit later in the season, which will be, a more detailed wrap-up of this, and talk about the goals, which are to try to identify the mosquito breeding hotspots and determine what may or may not be able to be done with them in order to drain them better or grade them in such a way that they don't retain water and therefore won't be breeding spots for larvae. So that may be something that we will be able to work on as next season, through the winter and into next season with vector control and the Nature Conservancy. So that's it.
Next work.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
I have one other thing, actually, on aquaculture, if I could. The Shellfish Hatcheries asked if we would be interested in making a purchase with trustee money from the town budget,
Maricultural line.
mariculture line. They're looking to buy some polypropylene tubs to use in the oyster gardening project. Looking for 20 tubs. It's from Granger. The town has a contract with Granger, so there's no...
We've
price.
actually done this in the past with them, so I would be in favor of contributing to that.
You want to put a motion on the floor?
Well,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we purchase 20 tubs from Granger at $8 and change per tub. Total of $169.60.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Glad to help.
Okay. Beaches, update from Dell.
Yeah, thanks. I just have a real short, few words I just want to say about this. As usual, I've been checking the beaches every morning, the trash cans that are on the few beaches, and they're continued to overflow and have issues with them concerning wildlife, as well as the bags left on the ground. This was yesterday morning. This is common of what I see every morning on several of the beaches in the village. That's a dirty diaper on the ground, by the way. This is common stuff.
How were the beaches after the firework display?
This was the
After the
morning.
firework display?
At one beach, one garbage can at Wyborg. They were all trashed. They were all a mess. It was even odd to see that the village had put dumpsters in the parking lots, yet people chose to pile their garbage in bags around the garbage cans in the parking lots and on the beaches. And very little was in the dumpsters. I took pictures of that, as I do every morning, and videos of the wildlife pulling it around and dragging it to the beach. You know, growing up here, as far as I can remember, there haven't been trash cans on the beach. I know the town did it for a while. I know they took them off because they found that it was creating more of a mess, obviously, same thing as I'm talking about here. And they haven't done it since, and everything's been fine. So, you know, the way I look at this is what the village is doing with these garbage cans is a pilot program. Not very environmentally wise, but as we can see, but it's absolutely a failed program. And, you know, I just, you know, everybody fails. We've all failed. I fail a lot, okay? I get up, I admit it, I try to correct things, and, you know, I try not to fail again. And I really think that what should dominate this conversation is not whether Dell handled this the wrong way or he's too aggressive, or whether the village working crew is doing a good job or a bad job. That shouldn't be what dominates this conversation. What it should be is there are dumping stations on our beaches. That should dominate the conversation, but it hasn't. And I find, I really find it strange that here we are, a board, we've spent so much time with Deepwater Wind discussing that, putting up with the misinformation, the little opaque process that they're putting us through. And we still are forging to do business with these people. Yet I can't get support from you folks to get garbage cans off the beach. I find that really strange. I mean, one side is environmentally difficult. It's $1 billion project. And I'm talking about removing garbage cans off the beach, which is an environmental no-brainer. Common sense, and it would be something of a thank you to all the volunteers that have spent all the time with me over the past 6 years cleaning those beaches. We haven't charged the trustees, the village, or the town a penny, and we work real hard. I don't think I have to convince you folks of that. And I've asked your support for this over and over again. And what it seems to me is you all are rooting for the trash. That's the way us volunteers.
That's not true, Dell.
That's the way we see it,
Well,
Francis. Because we don't understand why we can't. I mean, Francis, we can discuss this. But you know, we don't have to roll our eyes about this.
We're not
issue.
rolling our eyes.
I think this is a topic that's worth repeating over and over and over
I don't
again.
disagree with you.
Hey, Del, can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
You know, we are moving into the off-season, which is a good time to talk about change when crews aren't busy and engaged in standard operating procedure. So I think it's a good time to start, you know, maybe a new dialogue in the off-season when things can be planned. So I like that opportunity.
That's okay too,
And
Rick.
I have one other thing that I wanted to
Yeah.
share. You know, last time we talked about the original process that took place when the garbage pails originally went onto the beach.
Right.
Now, at the last meeting, the village sent a letter about using vaping, smoking pipes or something, and they wanted the trustees to weigh in on that. And it prompted a question in my mind: did the village engage the trustees in deliberations about putting garbage cans on the beaches? And I don't know if that was something you were gonna look into, or we're gonna talk about more.
Well,
I would just like to
we're
know if the
not.
trustees were ever consulted on this, because as I understand it, there's a joint process that is supposed to take place.
Predates everybody at this table.
Well, I understand that, but it doesn't predate our board.
No.
And I just was wondering if any research was done
Yes,
to
I did.
understand that, because to me, if the process wasn't done properly, it should be revisited. I think that's a fair request.
Right. I did do some research, and I'm going to give everybody my results. And really, it's a little more than research. I'm sure some of you are going to throw it right in the garbage, and that's okay, okay? Because probably some of you are tired of hearing me talk about this. But I'm not going to stop, because I find it is that important. Not to me, to our beaches. And what it is, it's a timeline. It's a timeline from when I first came back. It's not a long story, folks. It's real quick and summarized, and it gets right to the point. It gets right to the part where I went to the trustees in 2015, and I got 8 out of 9 of your votes, including 2 people here, that were for me in this process. And I have, from that step all the way till the last meeting we had, right here in the timeline, all the minutes, all the interactions with the trustees of 2015 and the village. And when it all comes down to it, and you've seen this, Rick, because I emailed it to you, okay? And what it comes down to is we've got dumping stations on our beach, and they don't belong there. And if we want to start making environmentally sound decisions, I say this one's a drop in the bucket. Let's get this one off and behind us. Let's set a precedent that, you know, to you folks, and the way I'm making it sound is quite simple. But there's going to be big results from it once you get these cans off the beach. I promise you that.
Well, you know, I'm an advocate for carry in, carry out. I mean, I'm not an advocate of the pails being on the beach, but I do think that there has to be a process we follow to get there. And when you had 8 of 9 votes, may I just refresh my own memory?
Sure.
What was the resolution or motion or request that was on the table at that time?
It was to
there-
get the
an action done?
cans off the beach, to
Or was it
ask
to
the
send a
village,
letter?
to
Was it-
send a letter to have the village remove the cans.
So,
And basically, what it all ended at is the village said they weren't going to remove the cans. They had no immediate plans on removing the cans, was one of the village trustees' exact words. And what the agreement came to be, as explained to me by the trustee at the time, Deb Klugers, was that they agreed to put signs on the cans saying, if they're full, don't put any more trash in the cans. There's one on top of this can, if you look, okay? They do nothing. They're little signs that somebody drew and scotch taped with packing tape on top of the cans. And when the guys use these top of the cans to burn their fire pits, it burns them right off. okay? But regardless, nobody pays attention to them anyway. I could show you hundreds of pictures like this.
So Del, I'm hearing a lot of bad behavior about the general public. How do you address that? And just by removing the cans is not going to address that bad behavior. They're going to do the same. I know you're going to say
no, it's
that
gonna
they're going to
fall-
do the same thing
Right.
up on the top, and it's not going to blow down onto the beach
Right.
as
As
often.
much.
I understand all that.
Right.
But how can we also neglect the behavior?
Well, I don't even, can I don't want to butt in, but I've listened to you, Del.
Not
And-
very long. You barely listen to me at all.
I don't, I take exception to that, Del.
I don't
take
rightly care what you take
Okay,
exception to.
Okay, because I do listen, okay? And I try and listen to all sides. And I watch your demeanor and your approach on this. And as a person that, in my everyday life, I have to interact with a lot of different people and get something from them, okay?
Which
And
I do as well. I
Okay,
do as well.
but you know what? I think there is an opportunity here if you could just bring yourself to exercise just a little bit of patience, okay? Engage the village on an eye-to-eye, one-on-one basis at a time of the year, like Rick suggested, that they could consider changing. You're not gonna, I don't think it's realistic that you're gonna get the village to agree to take all the cans off the beach in one shot, okay? Because honestly, the village has a system that's been in place for a long time. They feel it works because the garbage does get picked up, and quite honestly, there's almost no complaints about that. But I think there's some real relevance to your discussion, but you know what? Put yourself in their position, because they have to deal with the ramifications of this if it doesn't work, okay? I think we discussed this literally months ago, is to put this on hold, approach the village, not for the 4th of July, when all of their protocols, all of their procedures are in place for the season, but approach them, I think where Rick was going, in the off-season, try and get a friendly dialogue going here, and say, hey, maybe it's Wyborg's, that they try a pilot program, and you may be proven, you have the opportunity to be proven right, and the village doesn't risk too much on their credibility in picking up the garbage, because if it doesn't work, well, hey, we haven't done this wholesale, and if it does work, it's a shining example of what you could do throughout. Okay, I'm not your enemy, okay? And if you come to me like I'm your enemy, which is, I think, from what I've heard, the way you have approached the village, I think you're doomed to the dialogue's doomed to failure, okay? I'm just trying to help you here.
I don't see the only failure I see is our beaches are going to get trashed. And again, I don't think my demeanor should dominate this discussion, okay? I've been nice to them, Jim. I've been nice,
But you
okay? For years, I was
To be
nice.
honest, Del,
Okay.
your demeanor is not winning me over in this discussion.
and
I
it
don't-
doesn't-
I can't speak for everybody
But
else.
that's fine. It's not the demeanor that's on trial here. This is an issue concerning our environment, okay? If I came here and if the village put porta potties on the beach, and I came here screaming and yelling about it, would it matter that I'm screaming and yelling about it? No. Porta potties don't belong on the beach. You
Well,
don't need
I
people.
think that this is moving ahead the way it probably should have been. I don't know what went on.
Well, you're going to
that-
see in this little pamphlet
that
some
no,
of the
hang on,
information.
Hang on, that went on, that when did they start putting the cans on the beach? Was there a dialogue with the trustees at that time about the cans? Not taking it in 2015, because the cans on the beach predate 2015. That was when you brought it to the
Absolutely.
attention.
No, I've been taking pictures since 2010
Okay.
of this mess.
But did
And
we
that's
ever-
my proof in the pudding.
Right, but did we ever get back to when the cans first went on the beach, and was there a dialogue with the trustees at that time? Do we know when the cans?
There's nothing in the minutes that shows anything about it that I've been able to find.
Thank you. Just to Jim's point, I mean, we all kind of have to get along and work together, and I just think it's easier when we're all a little calmer and, a little more user-friendly amongst our board.
Look, I
You know what I'm
get
saying?
I get all that, okay? That's not the way I operate, okay? Because I find that when you dance around these issues, like issues regarding environmental decisions and simple things like trash and litter, which shouldn't be so difficult, and we can't seem to get a handle on it. And when I put me and an army of volunteers, and I take their personal time to clean these beaches and our roadsides of the filth that doesn't belong to us for no pay, then I think dancing around the issue is done.
But when you threaten people on social
There's
media.
no threat.
I've seen them, Del. I've
What's
seen
threat?
your threats on
What's
social
threat?
media.
What's a threat to you, Francis?
When,
Because I don't see you on social media.
right, exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be there.
So how
because
are you seeing
I'm not
me
gonna
if you're
get
not
dragged
there?
into it. I've seen it in the past.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
why I'm
The
no
past.
longer there.
Yeah.
Del, let's, you want to do this, that's fine, you can talk. I have no problem with that. I don't think we're going to go anywhere with it this season.
Oh, well, I can't imagine we will.
But
Don't say not to talk about it until next season. I'm
nobody
gonna talk
said that.
about
No,
it.
actually, we said just the opposite. The season is ending, and then, as soon as it's ended, then's the time to start talking, when people
Well,
are
I felt it was time
able
to
to
talk
plan
about
ahead.
it when I brought it up. Because I don't think removing the garbage cans was that big of a deal.
Well,
Okay.
it is to the village, and they have taxpayers who are not complaining about it. They're paying
Well,
for that
I-
service.
I-
They look at it as a service.
Okay, to reply to that statement,
Mm-hmm.
Jim and Francis, about nobody complaining, I have a petition going.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the village.
I have almost 400 signatures.
I understand
of
that.
people in East Hampton.
They're not
okay,
all from East Hampton.
Who use the beaches,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Once again, you're not on, so
Okay.
you wouldn't know, right, Francis?
Right. I wouldn't know.
You know,
I've never
what a
seen, I've never
slithering-
seen
Yeah, I know.
petitions.
I know you don't. And these people are concerned. These people are
People
concerned.
are entitled to be concerned. My point is, there are,
Well, don't say
Village-
there's nobody that's complaining
Excuse
about
me,
it.
let me finish
Because
what
there
I was
are
saying.
people complaining about it.
I said that the village taxpayers who are paying additional money for this service, which they seem to want.
Service? It's a-
are not.
it's a pigsty.
But they consider it a service.
It's a
okay?
pigsty.
They're
Is
paying-
this a service, Francis?
They're paying for that.
This is a pigsty, not a service. It's a detriment to our beaches.
You have a picture there of
I've got
after
100, I've
the
got
4th of
200.
July.
No,
Yeah, but Bill, I've
It was
got
after-
more
it
than
was
that.
Sunday,
You know
it was
Bill.
Sunday after
You
the
know I've got
fireworks.
more pictures than that. I've got it every day of last week. 2 weeks worth of pictures.
I think we're trying to move forward on this. I mean, I think nobody's disagreeing that we should
I
have
know nobody's
off-season-
I know nobody's
off-season,
disagreeing.
that we should have off-season discussions and try to
And we will.
persuade
And we
the
will.
village to come around.
And
to
we
what we're
will,
talking
John.
about.
And we will, but I'll fight this tooth and nail, regardless of what
We
you,
wouldn't expect
Jimmy,
anything
Francis.
less.
All right, so what's the deal?
The deal is, we've already discussed this. We have an idea of how we would like to approach it. It's not good enough for you. I'm sorry about that.
I haven't
And-
heard your
and-
plan. I haven't heard a plan of
Okay,
yours.
It's been, because you're the one who's not listening.
Yeah, I'm listening.
No, you're not.
I'm listening.
No, you're not.
I have
Do you want me to
something,
give you a recap, Del, of what I think was talked about?
I know what you're stating, okay?
Okay,
And
no, you
I,
said you
and
didn't
I
hear
don't,
it, so I just
well, I
wanted to-
don't believe taking this up next year and then maybe starting on one beach, a pilot program, I don't find that acceptable.
Okay.
So I don't think you have a plan.
We have a
If the-
plan. You don't want to be a part of it.
Unfortunately, if the plan is, if I don't get my way 100%, I'm just gonna stand there and continue to scream, is one, it's immature, and it's not a way to get,
Well,
it's not a way to get what you're asking for.
We'll see.
Because quite
We'll
frankly,
see.
when you go, your pictures are taken at the brink of dawn, okay?
You don't know when my pictures
We
are
could see
taken,
that one.
okay?
Okay, I can see where the
still
picture's
dark out.
taken, and you've made
Yeah,
that
this is 6
comment.
o'clock. The guy was picking up the trash when I took these pictures.
Yeah, Okay.
I've got
So,
it on
I mean,
video,
There's gonna
Francis.
be these
Well,
moments.
that's great, he's picking it up
So
at
don't
6 a.m.
you speculate on when I took the
Okay,
pictures.
I'm saying your photograph was
And you
dark.
neither, Jim.
It was
You
dark.
don't know when I take the picture.
I just looked at the picture you
So
gave me.
you
You see
saw a
the
picture.
friggin' sun coming up,
No,
okay?
that's the moon. That shows how smart you are.
see
It's a
what-
moon. There's a difference. Not so smart now, are you, Jim?
The moon was going
moon,
down.
sun,
The moon was going
difference.
down.
What-
We should move forward with
I have a,
See the ripples.
I wanted to share something about beaches, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. So, an older gentleman in our community was walking the beach, and I have a police report. Even though it was east of Atlantic Avenue, he was attacked by a dog, and he got bitten, pretty badly. I would just like to remind the community, you are responsible to keep your dog on a leash if it's aggressive. Certain areas in our town, you're not allowed to allow your dog to wander, for example, around the lifeguard stands, and there are signs that are posted. But that being said, when you go further east, for example, and probably west, but this happened around the end of Nap Peak, and this could be a child the next time. So I just wanted to remind everybody, if your dog is a little aggressive, even though it doesn't require a leash as far as signage is concerned, you are responsible, and I believe this person has a police report in place, and he got bit really bad. So, it is on our beach, and I told the gentleman that I would make mention of it. All right? So, thank you.
Brian?
Okay, we have a letter here from Nan French that I will read into the record. Dear Mayor Rickenback and village board members and town trustees, I'm asking you to please move the trash cans off the beaches, not the cans in the parking lot, but only the cans on the beaches that are being abused during the evenings and into the morning hours. This overabundance of filth and garbage gets spread across the beaches by wind and wildlife and illegal dumping. This continuing situation is very bad for our environment, can seriously harm marine wildlife, and is all around a serious situation that can easily be remedied by moving the trash cans off the beaches and placing them in the parking lots instead. Let's continue to do all we can to keep our beaches and our Mother Earth beautiful. Thank you, Nan French. Okay. Pump out boats. Looking into process of applying for a grant to get a new pump out boat for Montauk.
Yeah, I've been doing some research on this, spoken with Ed Michaels. We can not only get a grant to purchase a new pump-out boat, but we can also get grant money for maintenance.
We get that now.
Oh, we get that
We-
now?
we do, yes.
And education and information?
Well, we don't
I think we
do, we've been doing maintenance costs on the boats that we have.
Right, but the education
No,
part and the
no,
information, I mean,
that-
we can get grants to do radio ads, did I have it here? All kinds of things. Radio ad, DVD, materials, website posting, advertisements, printing, development, workshops, signs. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff in here which we should probably be
Mhm.
looking at
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
encourage this. I know, even working at PD, the other day, I got a call from somebody in Fairmont Harbor wanting to know what channel or where he goes to get his boat pumped out. So I think if we put it out there more and educate people more on that we have these services and where to go and
It'd be great to have
And-
some literature to hand
how
out
to do it, and
voters.
get, New York State to pay
Yeah.
for it.
We got a bunch of signs and everything when we first did the program. And we
Right.
got brochures and plastic
But where-
signs that were all over the place.
Where are all these brochures and where, I mean, we don't even have anything in the
This is
trustee
years
Yeah,
ago.
we
office,
used them, I mean,
you know?
we
Do
have
we have
to.
an idea of who uses these boats, basically? I mean, whether they're local or
Oh, he left.
out of town,
Yeah,
or
they're-
where they're
it-
from in terms of marinas?
Yeah, I can speak to 3 Mile Harbor a little bit. And, you know, a lot of seasonal boat slip holders that store their boats in 3 Mile Harbor routinely use the pump-out boat service. It's very common for the pump-out boat to be called to a marina on a given day and do 3 or 4 or 5 boats on
Yeah.
a schedule.
I've spoken to the boat in Montauk, and they get a lot of their business from the yacht club. And I've also,
So they come to the marina?
yeah, they go to the
will.
marinas and pump them out in the slips.
And do the marinas have, you know, signage,
Yeah.
literature?
Oh, yeah.
There's,
I'm sure
there's
they
not a
do.
lot of it. We
Communication with their clients.
we let people know that on a personal communication
So
basis.
if you could give them some,
It'd be nice to have
Yeah, we
literature.
could get all the
That might be a
Advertisement,
good place
radio
to start.
ads.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The marinas, most of
There's a
the, I
lot
think
here we
most
can-
of the,
Get funded on.
Most of the people come and
Yeah.
ask us how to do it.
I've
Most of the
also,
boat
I
owners.
discussed
Yeah.
with Melissa about the
Be nice to be more
the,
proactive.
Community Preservation Fund, and it looks like getting money for a pump-out boat would fit into the criteria for use of the 20% of the Community Preservation Fund, so I think we're gonna put something together and try and run it before the committee at the next meeting.
but now Susan, were you talking about something else? money
There's
being
another
available?
fund.
There's different funds that,
There's a federal
there's
motor
different
fuel
funds,
tax
the
fund.
assistant
Yeah, but I mean, it would probably,
facilities
it might be
fund.
better
Couple
to
different
tap
things
into
going.
the federal
Resources.
state funds.
The
Might as
federal
a
state
first
funds
step,
first, absolutely,
Then,
because you can
then go
get,
right to community preservation, only because you know what, that, there's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it might be
Finite
something we
pool.
wanna get different
Well,
funds,
it's
put it
all a
together.
finite pool.
You know, I mean, if something pays for 80% of it and something pays for 20% of
Yeah.
it, that would be.
yeah,
Right.
up to 75% of eligible costs.
So if we could get
So,
The other
somebody to
25.
pick
So,
up the other
yeah.
25%.
well, do we want to, you know, committee this and do a little research on?
Yeah, I think we should, you know, and not only that, but research a boat that we feel is gonna be
The right spec.
adequate to,
We could put
in
together
the
a
specs.
package of what you want, boat, what
Yeah.
kind of informational
Yeah,
materials, put
absolutely.
it
Yeah,
all
there's
together
some,
and
there's
then go
some,
out to.
After next weekend, I'll have more time to work on something like
Yeah,
this. So if
we
you
can
want to
sit
get
down.
together, I'd be happy to, you know, work with you on it.
yeah, there's some, pump-out boat manufacturers, marine boat manufacturers in Rhode Island that I was looking at. I don't know where we've gotten the
I
last
think Rhode
boats
Island is
from.
where we got everything.
But I
from.
think, yeah, I think they get most of the stuff from Rhode Island. So they have some specs online and,
Yeah, I think we should
different
really definitely commit to getting another boat for
things.
next year.
and also on our website, I was looking, and I don't know why it's there, but I was looking for the pump-out information for the public, and it's under maps.
Let's try and update
So I
that.
think, take a look at that, and I think we
Should
should
have its own
probably maybe
area.
move it into a link where we have
Community outreach.
community outreach.
Okay, let's do that.
I don't know, I mean, there's nothing under maps other than the pump-out boat information. So maybe it got put there
Yeah.
by mistake, but we
Maybe-
might want to, because I had a hard time finding it, and then all of a sudden
Yeah,
I was
probably
like, well, let
came
me.
forward from the legacy site, but let's
And I
update
went
it so
to
it's
there,
more
yeah.
helpful.
Is the purpose to replace an existing boat or to add a new boat to the fleet?
To-
I think one of the
Well,
boats getting a
to-
little tired, yeah?
Yeah.
And that's the Montauk boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, it had some fairly major repairs last year. We had to replace the gas tank in it and do a few other items.
You know, the pump is starting to go. I mean, you know, these are things
Pumps
we,
are easy to-
yeah, no, it's, nothing's not repairable, but I think if we got another boat and put one of them into backup situation, you know, we'd be a lot better off.
Yeah, how do
I
we
wonder
get
if
the
we
new
should
trailer
put
then now?
repairs
Yeah,
to that
we
boat
have
as
a
part
trailers
of the
down there, they
package.
take them out.
So you get a new boat
So
and
not stuck.
And updates.
money to repair
You're
the
not stuck
existing
around the
boat
city.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
get,
at the same
Yeah,
time.
they trail them out, but
And we just
It's
hired
a-
another
And we just,
part-time operator,
could
and
possibly
if
have
we
three
had a
boats
backup
going at
boat,
some
we could
time.
put it into service during
There's,
the
Yeah.
busier times of the season. Yeah.
Federal
Wouldn't be a
marine
bad
fuels
thing to have
tax, I
more,
think, that they pay
you
for
know,
all
just
the-
one more boat out there with an
Right.
operator.
It's like
It
a
can't
certain
hurt.
charge
We
on
can also
gasoline.
get
We-
grant
We
money
went through this whole thing when we got
for,
the first two boats. It's probably the same program.
some expenses of the pump-out boat operators.
Yeah, we get money for that every year.
And,
Talk to Lori, because she's been
all right, yeah.
doing
We
this
have a
all
history there.
along. Yeah.
But yeah, we should get together and
Yeah.
freshen this up a little bit,
I
definitely.
think we've been getting back $15,000 or $16,000 a year,
Yep.
something like that.
Yeah, when we submit the reports based
Yeah.
on usage.
Right.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
should
I
look at the
think it's
reporting
also-
process too, because that'll come up on us towards the end of the year.
Yeah, no, the reporting, it's all being done. Lori was,
Yeah, that's where their logs come in play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll committee that and get back to the board.
Roads Committee, trustee roads updates?
Well, we have been speaking about Merchants Path and Town Line as two areas. We have done site visits there, and I believe that, Susan, you had spoken with Chris as counsel on this.
I had
and-
spoken with Chris, I don't know if you made any progress on this.
Yeah, so I started organizing the issues on these properties, specifically the Merchants Path. There's 4 properties. Turned out to be a little bit more of an in-depth project than I originally anticipated. They each have their own unique issues. So began organizing and letter drafting. I have a site visit planned this week, and I plan to have a full report for the group at the next meeting. That's where I'm at with it.
Did we ever, I know we had drafted up some letters to send to the town boards about recognizing the trustees and the roads, and
Yes.
did we ever
We
do
have
that?
those, and we can kind of tweak those to be able to include for this project
Only
as
because
well.
I was looking at, again, I was looking at the, we had received the letter from the gentleman down on Bull Run,
Mhm.
and Dell and I had gone down there
Right.
and looked, and it's one access to 4 properties. And I went back and I got the original sub-waiver that was done on those 4 properties back in 1978, 1980. And it looks like that there was one access granted to all 4 of those properties. So I don't understand why he's requesting us to give them an access. But the question is that I don't think, from what I've read, the trustees, again, weren't even recognized, you know, in the,
Well, my understanding is that when they did the title search on the property to a pending transfer to a new owner, it showed that they didn't have clear title to that section of their driveway, and that they needed to have an easement in place to properly complete the real estate transaction.
so yeah, I have to do more research on that,
So-
because again, like the subdivision waiver back from 1980 reads that covering premises situate a private unimproved road known as Northwest Road Cross Highway, which it's not a private road, it's a trustee road. So it's the wording in some of these waivers and subdivision files that you go back and look at, where they didn't recognize the trustees. And I have a problem with that.
Well, I'm not sure if we can clean up
So-
some of these things,
Yeah.
but, you know, going forward as they come up, let's clean them up properly.
Well, you can clean them up by giving an easement
Yeah,
on that
Right.
recognizes
Gets
the
filed.
trustees
Trustees.
that's now on that deed, and it'll carry in the future.
And carry
If we want to
Yeah.
incrementally pursue that, you know, Susan,
because this is
it's
showing,
time
yeah.
consuming, it's a big.
Well, I
common
mean, it's one of those
driveway.
boilerplate things that can be written up and just inserting the tax map numbers and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the addresses.
Because we
And
did
then
give,
You know, on a few, on
Yeah.
a few, you know, on a case-by-case
Case basis.
basis.
yeah, Chris,
Good point,
did
Jim.
you find out that
Do you
each
go back
parcel has its own
and
unique
seek out all the ones that
issues?
don't? I think that might get a little tedious.
that's, yeah, we're just coming across them as we do these,
Yeah.
and like I
Yeah,
say,
but I think having-
the
having some
neighboring
hodgepodge of
property,
all that stuff, yeah.
18, we granted them an easement in 2011.
But I think get a standard language on the easement that can be applied to all of these as you go, because when you start going through those easements, as, you know, when subdivisions were done, they're not consistent,
They're
the
not.
language.
Some
you
of,
know,
some
so-
of the language recognizes the trustees and the trustees' roads, And others like this one do
Well,
not.
even when they do recognize the trustees' roads, the language in that easement in terms of, okay, what are the homeowner responsibilities? Because we had this just before
yeah,
you got on
everything's
the
different.
board, you had, the people that are coming to us and saying, well, we can't get the town to plow the roads. And, okay, there's a dilemma, until Diane had remembered that, oh, we can go back to this, and when you went back to the original easement, it puts the maintenance of that, of that unimproved trustee road on the property owners,
Yeah, and that easement,
Jim,
that particular easement was with the developer.
We have
Yeah.
a boilerplate
Yeah.
easement, but historically, and then under John Courtney, we put it on the homeowner and their attorney to take the boilerplate easement, draft it to their needs, then we'd look at it and they'd pay for legal fees, pay for the recording. So although we have this boilerplate easement, typically what the trustees have done over the last 30 years
Okay.
is say, hey, you know what, you go ahead and draft it, it's a big expense, it's time consuming,
All right.
recording fees
Can
and all
we-
that, and put it
can
back
we
together.
Can we do that on these ones that we're talking about now?
So what we'd be doing is asking the homeowner to draft the easement and get the expense and hire
Yeah.
the attorney and all that, so we can ask them to, yeah.
Yeah, because, hey, if that's what's standing, that's what's standing in the way of a closing.
Yeah.
When they need it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this guy needed it.
All right, so we'll keep working on this and get a more complete update at the next meeting.
All right, let's, can we do a report of the clerk? Chris? Will we be able to?
You want
Well, I'm
to-
gonna do the clam contest.
So you want to do the payment of the bills?
Administration first.
Hey, Francis, why don't we do the administrative
Okay.
and then do the report, the schedule?
All right. Payments of the bills. Edson International, $149.50 for boat parts. Seacoast Enterprises, $66.38 for pump-out boat. Have a motion to pay the bills?
I make a motion to pay.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes of July 23rd. Has anybody had a chance to review those?
I did. Did you get that today? Okay. So that change was made? Just
What was the change,
down
please?
line.
It went
The-
from neighbors, they spoke to neighbors, a neighbor, not
Dell and I
neighbors.
went and-
And it was Susan and Dell, not just Dell.
Okay, good.
That was my mistake, yes.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, August 13th?
I have not had an opportunity to look at those yet. Susan,
I
have you had a
did.
chance to look?
Made some
I-
changes, don't ask me what they were.
Could we table it till
Glanced at them.
next, or, do you have the changes, Arlene?
Prepared to.
Whatever you
maybe?
want, there
want
weren't
a
any
chance to look
changes
at
that
'em?
changed.
I had a
the
chance to look at them. I didn't find any.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
I'll make a motion to accept those minutes
of the 13th?
of the 13th.
Great.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Financial reports, July 31st?
Well, I had an opportunity to go through them, and I don't see anything that appears to be out of order. So having had 2 weeks to review it, I would make a motion that we accept them.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Report of the clerk. Okay, Lori wants me to make sure I do this largest clam contest, okay? She has a long list of duties that she's going to be taking care of. That's here. We have a list of prior sponsors and suggestions for others. We need to split this up between us and go out and solicit for prizes, okay? Is there anybody who won't be able to help out, or?
I can help you. Why don't you give me the ones in Montauk, I'll take care of those.
And I've got a couple I've been working with that I can follow up on as well.
Okay. What does she
And
have
when
here?
is the largest clam count?
The largest clam,
September 23rd, the last Sunday? The 23rd or the 25th?
No, last Sunday.
In September, right?
No.
You can put my name down to the balance, you know.
Usually have
Fine.
Yeah, it's on
on
Saturday.
Saturday.
23rd, September 23rd, second to last.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can do Al Goldberg.
You know, we're leaving out a gentleman that made a custom rod for us, Al Goldberg.
I know Al Goldberg.
Sure.
He's
I
right
can,
here,
I
too.
can, I can do it.
Oh, is he on there? Did I miss him?
He's
I
number
like that.
5.
Yeah, number 5.
Al,
Awesome.
I don't know whether you guys are aware, Al does this kind of quiet stuff in town. Like every couple of years, for the last, I think it's over 10 years, Al will take the Boy Scouts from East Hampton and Montauk, and I gotta tell you, it's a thankless job because he gets like friggin' 30 screaming kids and builds rods. Like in these beautiful custom rods.
Yeah.
But the
Blanks
kids,
and
but the kids,
seats and
he
everything.
provides the blanks, and the kids do the rods, you know, they do the wrapping and all that stuff. And then the last thing that Al does is he does the lacquering. But if you've seen that cat roundup of doing it, man, the guy has so much more patience than I ever thought he did, knowing him growing up.
It's great to get young people into sport fishing, so it's a real nice thing that he's doing.
I asked him last year, and he gave us one of his custom rods. So if you want to talk to him, Jim?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of friendly. with
Yeah,
Al.
all right, great.
Okay.
So that's-
So this is the things to do list. She will not be with us this year at the contest, okay? So if we screw it up, we're gonna have to answer to her. We're gonna need to pick judges. Just take a look at this stuff,
Okay.
and I think we need to discuss
Next
this and
meeting,
get it,
get
yeah.
some assignments
Because
together.
I think there's only one meeting after that.
You know, to be really proficient at this, this is almost a committee.
Yeah.
You know, this is
event
like
management.
3 or 4 people to run with it, I think.
Okay. And that brings us to Deepwater Wind. We have a resolution before us to hire an attorney. How do we do this? Do we make a motion to present the resolution?
I think we could just
Should you read the resolution?
All right. Whereas the trustees and the freeholders and commonality of East Hampton claim ownership of the beaches fronting on Beach Lane, Wayne-Scott, New York, and whereas the trustees have previously resolved to engage a law firm with energy and municipal expertise to represent them in negotiations with Deepwater Wind South Fork in reference to the proposed landing of a high-voltage electric cable at Beach Lane, Wayne-Scott, New York, and whereas the trustees intend to continue to negotiate a land use agreement with Deepwater Wind South Fork, and whereas the trustees intend to participate as interveners in the Article 7 process, and whereas an appointed committee of trustees has interviewed 3 highly qualified law firms to represent the trustee board, the full board has reviewed the submitted proposals from these firms. Now be it resolved that the trustees will retain the services of attorney Daniel Spitzer of Hodgson Russ LP.
Make a motion to accept the resolution?
I'll second that.
Want to go around the table?
Yeah, I think you need
Okay,
to.
John?
I need, do you ever get a roll call on it, or?
Yeah.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, John Aldred,
Yes.
Susan Vorpal, I'll just.
Yes.
Yeah. Jim Grimes,
Yes.
Bill Taylor,
Yes.
Francis Bach,
Yes.
Rick Drew,
Yes.
Brian Burns,
Yes.
Del Cullum,
Yes.
unanimous, minus the absent trustee.
I'd just like to acknowledge Chris's work in this attorney selection process. It was a lot of work to identify appropriate attorneys and firms. It had to look pretty much coast-wise to find out who specialized in this stuff. And then there was a lot of work finding out who, was not in conflict with other clients that would be able to, we could consider, and to communicate with all those firms and arrange to get them to East Hampton, either in person or by phone, and get them prepped and, get them up to speed on who we are and what the issues, the basic issues were. I was very impressed when we met with these attorneys at how much legwork went into this, and I think Chris did a great job in getting it together. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the committee that did these interviews. I think you guys did an excellent job, and you put a lot of time into it and a lot of thought, and I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Francis.
All right.
Too bad I don't drink anymore, because this would be the time when we go out to the bar. It sounded that way.
Okay, last bit we have here is correspondence. Let's see what we got.
Nope. No correspondence.
I don't see anything.
Other than we were furnished a letter, which we'll read next time, from the East Hampton Historical Society, thanking us for the $300 donation to the Marine Museum, and they have all kinds of cool things they do with the kids, camp, and they really appreciate it. And so thank you once again, everybody, for voting in favor of that, and we'll read it into the record next time we meet.
I think Rod Richardson also sent in a letter following up on the Cartwright Island issue. You didn't receive it? Okay, I received it. I got it late before I came here. I didn't make the previous meeting, the executive meeting, because I had work to do, but I ran home to change. Checked the email. I saw the letter. I didn't know I was supposed to bring it. I thought maybe he had brought it, but maybe we can address it next time. Has anybody made any inquiries? I'm sure he'd like to know.
I spoke with Steve Warner at the East Hampton Library. He's been doing some research on it. He did find a lease deed dated back from 1915, I believe, where the Gardners leased their land, and it clearly states for hunting purposes to a McKay individual. Mackey. And it clearly did state in that lease back from 1915 the lands of Gardner Island and Ram Island, which is now known as Cartwright Shoals.
Can we, I know a lot of this
That's far back
issue,
as something that he found reference of ownership,
a lot of this issue.
Claim of ownership.
claim of ownership.
I spoke to the state, and the gentleman who was the director, much like Kim Shaw is here, but he's the state guy. He said that he felt what he was looking at, Cartwright, Shoal, or Island, was owned partially by the town of East Hampton, state, and closest to Gardner's Island. But he said you'd have to refer back to the original deed, or as far back as you could get,
Yeah.
for something a little more definitive.
Was yours a document?
Yeah.
Is there
It's
any way
signed
we can get a copy?
The library has it.
The library has that?
But we need to go back well beyond that.
But he's
That's
calling,
not-
yeah,
only
but
implies
that just
something.
applies,
That
that's a deed, but he's doing
You
more
know,
research.
I'm just thinking
It's
because
just gonna take some time.
Yeah.
I just know that a lot of this issue has to do with, nobody producing
Yeah.
a document of evidence.
Well, the documents that
I
the
often
documents
feel
that
that Rod would comply to whatever the reality is, but he just wants to be shown that reality is in fact
Right.
reality.
The original documents, the patents that I've looked at,
Yeah, that's what
don't
they
show
claim,
any
but
references
see, there
to
was a
some of the
thing called
claims that are
public
being
trust
made.
doctrine.
So
Was
it's very
factor of
unclear,
English law
based
before
on
the
the
Magna
historical documents
And the
that were
states
issued.
states
And I might
the
add,
land between
and
low
correct me if
water
I'm wrong,
and
this is
high
a
water
movable
is the
sandbar.
property of
Sure.
everybody.
You know, I mean,
It's mobile,
It's
right?
a-
It's a very tricky issue.
They want to keep people off the island, that, in my opinion, that's the bottom line. And they see that as a way to the island, I guess, at a certain point, at low tide. I don't know.
Shoreline.
I had.
There might be
I
more
had a-
recent issues,
They have
payment of
fishing
taxes,
rights
adverse possession,
and the
type
fishing
issues.
rights
Yeah.
Yeah,
owned
I had read or heard that
by
possibly they've been paying the
organizations
taxes
and
on that property for
individuals
some
who
time
put
now,
their
so
rights.
it goes back
They don't
historically,
have-
and there's
they
recent
don't
issues as
have
well,
rights
depending on
to
adverse type claims, other
They have-
property.
Yeah, I've only seen the historical
that are
document.
Yeah,
like
so it
privately
needs a full
hired
review for
that
somebody
Yeah.
to qualify. Maybe we
have, like,
look to
peace
engage
officer
somebody like the
jurisdiction
library
to write
gentleman
you
that
and arrest you
is
when
expert in
you're
this.
fishing.
I don't even know if, I mean,
Coincidentally,
is it
almost
our,
all the
is it our
bells are fishing
responsibility
So what
to
you do
produce
is,
some
if
evidence
you wanna
to
fish on the
somebody,
river, you
to
call
a,
them. You
to
find
a
the
a person that's requesting it?
Well, Rod believes, he believes it's state land,
And then a
so
lot of times they have.
Not really our
he should
purview.
really be trying
With
to
the state.
figure it out
Well, I
through
think-
them.
Go through the process.
I had a conversation with a local attorney who's a scholar of trustee history, and his feeling is that it belongs to the gardeners. And he certainly says it absolutely belongs to them geologically, because it comes from the island. But his reading of the
So
patent, he
that's- and,
believes.
you know,
I
it
think
would
you're
seem to me to
correct in
fall
that.
upon whoever is charging this gentleman with trespassing to prove they own the property.
Yeah, and I
Right.
think, is that a matter of
Yeah.
his court case?
Right.
He's been arrested.
Probably will
Right.
be.
And he's gonna
There
defend
will
Yeah,
himself.
he's-
And if it
So the
goes-
burden of proof
No,
is
it's-
going to be
Now-
on
now-
the arresting
Now,
party.
what's that phrase?
The public,
I would-
the
I
public
don't know.
trust doctrine comes into this too,
Right.
which is in English common law, it was actually English common law before the Magna Carta. So it would have applied to the gardener's deed. And that holds that the land between low water and high water is held in a public trust irregardless of ownership, the public may walk on
Well, that's
that
why
property.
that's why your deeds, even if you have like sort of beach rights, it's only to the mean high water.
Right.
That's as far as they.
I mean, I
as far as they
understand
go.
there's an issue of protecting it for a sanctuary purpose, perhaps a nesting area and whatnot. But you have to kind of balance that with access rights, if it does so imply.
You know,
And unfortunately, you're gonna have to rely on, you know, if we do find and allow public access, we're gonna have to rely on, I hate to use this word, common sense, to have people say, look, you have the right, but
But
we really would appreciate it if, you know, and then there comes the issue, do we have to put signs up to make you realize that
we
we're kind of
can't
serious?
even, we can't even get people to use common sense in littering and not littering
Well,
on our beaches.
that was my
How
whole.
are we gonna get them to
Well, that
use
was
common
that's where I
sense
threw
to
in the
not
sarcasm.
endanger the
There might
wildlife?
Yeah.
there might be an example on Gull Island, because that's an established sanctuary that's been monitored by the Museum of Natural History for decades.
Right.
And I'm sure they somehow control the access to the island, so there may be some legal precedence there.
Right.
It's also hard to get
And
on that
honestly,
island.
if the Gardner family owns
The current and the
Cartwright,
rocks.
it would be a very convenient way then of addressing this problem.
It'll be an interesting discussion as it
I just,
progresses.
I appreciate you talking about it a little bit, because I know, you know,
important.
he'll probably be concerned. I'm not in correspondence with him. I'm just know from this email, he said he wasn't gonna make it.
Right.
He had this letter, so I'm sure he wants to keep the conversation going.
Yeah. I
We
know.
can do that.
But if it's,
It's
if
an
it's
interesting
not,
conversation.
it is interesting, but if it's not in our, if it's not in, for our wheelhouse,
purview.
and we have more important, you know.
Oh,
things to
no.
No, I mean, nothing says we
interesting,
can't
you know,
support the inquiry.
Right, good,
Yeah.
because members like organizations like CFAR are also very curious about
Yeah.
the results from this, as I think we are, and maybe the public as
But I
well.
would think one of the big issues on all this access stuff is, what about the sanctuary nature?
Right.
I mean, like
What
you
about the
said,
wildlife?
you may have the right, but, how
Is
do
it-
you balance the needs of the wildlife with
Unintended
people's
consequences.
desires to go anywhere they possibly can?
Anybody see the story of that bird sanctuary? I think it was in Arkansas, where the people went in and they spent the day and they chased all the birds off and they took the eggs out of the nests, thousands of eggs, and decorated the beach with them. Killed them all.
Common sense.
And then that's how stupid people are.
Okay.
I remember Alfred Hitchcock with the birds, that was kind of scary.
All right, on that note.
He sent a letter to Lori's email at 4 p.m. today.
That's okay, we'll.
And he asked it
do
to be
next
read in
week,
the
next
record, but
meeting.
we'll read it next week. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll make a motion.
I'm sorry about that.
Second.
All in favor?
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.